Naivety often comes with a softness that we once considered a virtue, but later, when the dust settles, we realize it was also the very thing that left us vulnerable. When you look back at situations where you were taken advantage of, manipulated, or even blindsided by the actions of someone you trusted, one of the first thoughts that may surface is, was I naive? It's an uncomfortable question, but a necessary one, because behind it lies your growth, your self-awareness, and the possibility of never repeating those painful patterns again. To be naive is not the same as being unintelligent. Many intelligent people, well-read, educated, and experienced, fall into the trap of naivety. It is not about a lack of knowledge, but a lack of expectation that people can act with cruelty, deception, or selfishness. Naivety is often born from empathy, from believing that if you wouldn't do something hurtful, others wouldn't either. It is assuming that transparency is the default in relationships. It is expecting honesty, reciprocity, and respect as the standard. The tragedy is that when naivety meets manipulation, the fallout is devastating. There are those moments when you replay conversations, when you remember all the red flags you brushed aside, and you ask yourself why you didn't see it sooner. Why did you give that person the benefit of the doubt again and again, despite repeated evidence that they didn't deserve it? Why did you excuse the lies, the half-truths, the dismissive tones? Why did you cling to the hope that things would change? That if you just tried harder, gave more, sacrificed more, it would be different. That cycle is painful to reflect upon, but it is the very cycle where naivety lives. It is easy to be angry at yourself for it. That anger is valid. But beneath it is grief. The grief of realizing that the way you see the world, with trust and openness, was not reciprocated. The grief of realizing that some people saw your kindness not as a gift, but as an opportunity to exploit. The grief of realizing that the story you told yourself about this person or situation was never real. It was just the one you created out of hope. Naivety often makes us loyal to the potential of people instead of their reality. You didn't love who they were. You loved who you thought they could be. You stayed not because they were treating you well, but because you believed that the better version of them was just around the corner. That's the harsh truth about naivety. It binds you to illusions and makes you ignore reality. And once you see reality, the disillusionment hits like a wave, leaving you shaken and exhausted. When you look at yourself and say, was I naive? The answer may be yes, but that yes is not an indictment of your intelligence. It is a reflection of your humanity. It means you believed people could be good. It means you led with trust instead of suspicion. It means you valued connection enough to give people chances. And while the cost of that may have been painful, it also means that the problem was never that you were broken or foolish. The problem was that someone took advantage of your openness. That being said, growth demands that we do not stay naive forever. Life demands that we learn, that we harden where necessary, that we put up boundaries where once we left doors wide open. To remain naive is to leave yourself vulnerable to repeated harm. To acknowledge your naivety is to reclaim your power. It is to say, I will no longer ignore the signs. I will no longer hand out unlimited benefit of the doubt. I will no longer confuse hope with reality. Think about all the times you rationalized behavior that hurt you. Maybe you said, they didn't mean it. Or, they're just stressed. Or, if I'm more patient, they'll change. Naivety thrives in rationalizations. But if you strip away the excuses, what is left is a pattern. People reveal themselves over time. The problem is not that you didn't see who they were. It's that you didn't want to believe it. You chose the narrative that was less painful, the one that kept the fantasy intact. But fantasies always collapse under the weight of reality. The shift comes when you understand that hope is not a strategy. Hoping someone will change does not mean they will. Hoping someone will value you does not mean they do. Hoping someone will see your worth does not guarantee that they are capable of it. Hope without evidence keeps you trapped. Evidence is what you must rely on now. Evidence in actions, in consistency, in words that match behavior. Naivety also shows up in self-blame. You may say, if I had been stronger, smarter, or less forgiving, this wouldn't have happened. But the reality is that the person who exploited you would have done so regardless. It was never about your strength or weakness. It was about their character. You can carry shame, but shame is misplaced. The responsibility for exploitation never belongs to the exploited. There's also an important distinction here. Being naive once does not mean you will always be naive. Growth means you take that painful lesson and you build a new framework. It means you move from being open without discernment to being open with boundaries. It means you learn how to trust, but verify. It means you give people the opportunity to show you who they are, but you believe them the first time they reveal themselves. That is wisdom born from naivety. But let's be honest. Sometimes part of you may still long for that naive version of yourself. The one who didn't see malice coming, the one who gave people endless chances, the one who believed love and effort were enough. That part of you was softer, more idealistic, less jaded. And it's okay to grieve the loss of that version of yourself. But what you gain in return is discernment. What you gain is the ability to see clearly, to stand firmly, and to protect yourself in ways you couldn't before. Ask yourself this: would you rather live blinded by illusions or walk with clarity, even if that clarity stings? The truth is always kinder than false hope in the long run. And that's the greatest lesson naivety teaches. You may not like reality, but it will always serve you better than denial. This is also where compassion for yourself is essential. You were not naive because you wanted to see the good in people. That's not a weakness. It's a reflection of your values. The key is to hold on to that goodness without letting it blind you. You can remain kind without being unguarded. You can remain hopeful without ignoring patterns. You can remain compassionate without sacrificing your boundaries. That balance is the antidote to naivety. Every time you question yourself, was I naive? Turn it into a commitment. I may have been, but I will not be again. Because the real danger is not in having been naive once. It is in refusing to learn from it and falling into the same cycles again. Growth means you build from the pain. Growth means you take responsibility for your healing, even if you are not responsible for the hurt. You will encounter people who mistake your new boundaries for bitterness. They may accuse you of being cold, harsh, or unforgiving. But you will know the truth: you are no longer naive, and that's a strength they cannot manipulate. Boundaries are not walls to keep everyone out. They are filters that let the right people in. And the right people will respect them. The world can be harsh, yes, but that does not mean you must become harsh too. It means you must be wise. It means you must learn how to spot manipulation, how to recognize red flags, how to trust patterns over words. It means you no longer gamble your peace of mind on potential, but invest it in reality. The most powerful thing you can do with your naivety is to turn it into awareness, to stop asking, why did they do this to me? And start asking, Why did I stay when I saw the signs? That shift puts the power back in your hands. Because while you cannot control what others do, you can control your response, your choices, your willingness to accept or walk away. You may never stop caring deeply. You may never stop wanting to see the best in people. That's part of who you are. But now, you do it with eyes open. You do it with the understanding that not everyone deserves access to you. You do it with the recognition that love without respect is not love, that trust without accountability is not trust, that hope without action is empty. So yes, you were naive, and yes, it cost you. But now you know better, and knowing better means you will do better. That's the transformation, taking the pain of naivety and using it to build wisdom, strength, and resilience. Because the truth is, you are not defined by the times you were naive. You are defined by the way you rise after them. Naivety is so often mistaken for foolishness, but that is an unfair assessment of what it really means. To be naive is not to lack intelligence, education, or life experience. It is to have trusted with an open heart. It is to have assumed that other people would act with the same integrity, honesty, and respect that you naturally bring into relationships. You believed that if you gave kindness, you would receive kindness in return. If you were loyal, others would reciprocate. If you extended empathy, it would be honored. That assumption is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of humanity. The tragedy is that naivety can be exploited by those who do not operate with the same values. They see openness not as a virtue, but as an opportunity. When you reflect on times when you were taken advantage of, your mind may tell you, I should have known better. That voice of self-blame can be loud and unrelenting. But the truth is, it is not that you didn't know better. It's that you didn't expect betrayal. You weren't foolish for trusting. Someone else was wrong for betraying that trust. Intelligence does not protect you from deception when the deception is deliberate. What your naivety reflected was a worldview that others, like you, valued honesty. This distinction matters deeply because without it, you may carry shame that does not belong to you. Believing you were naive, it doesn't mean you should now see yourself as weak or gullible. It means you must recognize that the problem wasn't your kindness. It was their exploitation. By reframing naivety not as stupidity, but as trust misplaced in the wrong persons, you begin to reclaim your dignity and stop carrying responsibility for what someone else chose to do. Naivety often lingers in the space between what is real and what we desperately hope for. It convinces you to hold on to the potential of someone rather than face the truth of who they are showing you to be. You may find yourself excusing red flags, brushing aside inconsistencies, or telling yourself stories about why they behave the way they do. Perhaps you said things like, they just had a bad day, or they'll change once things settle down, or even, if I love them enough, they'll finally see my worth. These rationalizations become the lifeline of naivety. They keep you loyal not to the person in front of you, but to the fantasy you created about them. This loyalty to illusions is powerful because it provides comfort, even if only temporarily. Facing reality means admitting that the relationship, situation, or person may never become what you imagined. That admission is painful, and so naivety steps in to protect you from the sting of truth. Yet what feels like protection is actually a trap. The longer you stay invested in potential, the more you deny yourself the clarity to act. You remain stuck, waiting for someone to become who you hoped they were, while evidence keeps showing you they are not. When the disillusionment finally arrives, it can feel crushing. You replay every moment you ignored, every sign you dismissed, every excuse you clung to, and the weight of regret is heavy. But the regret is not about lack of intelligence. It is about the way hope blinded you to reality. The challenge is learning that hope alone cannot sustain a healthy relationship. Without evidence, without consistency, without actions aligning with words, hope becomes nothing more than a fragile illusion. And illusions always break. The turning point in moving past naivety is the moment you are able to acknowledge it without shame. Awareness is uncomfortable because it forces you to admit that you overlooked signs, that you gave more chances than were deserved, and that you stayed in situations that drained you. But this acknowledgement is where wisdom begins. It shifts you from blindly offering trust to learning how to protect it. Recognizing naivety allows you to say, I will not hand out endless benefit of the doubt. I will not ignore patterns. I will not confuse potential with reality. This isn't about becoming cold or closed off. It's about developing discernment. Boundaries become the natural outcome of this growth. Where before you may have tolerated disrespect in the name of loyalty, you now learn to draw a line that protects your dignity. Where before you excused hurtful behavior, you now hold people accountable for their actions. Where before you allowed hope to override evidence, you now let evidence guide your choices. Boundaries do not mean shutting people out. They mean filtering who earns access to you. And this is not selfishness, it is self-preservation. Acknowledging naivety also strengthens your ability to trust yourself again. When you recognize that your kindness was not the problem, but rather your lack of limits, you stop blaming your own nature. You realize you can still be open-hearted, but with safeguards in place. That balance creates resilience. It allows you to see people more clearly without losing your empathy. The act of saying, yes, I was naive, is not an admission of weakness. It is a declaration that you now choose awareness over illusions. That choice transforms past pain into a foundation for stronger, healthier connections moving forward. The painful realization that you were not ours can eventually evolve into a strength that reshapes the way you move through the world. At first, the loss of that softer version of yourself may feel like grief. You may miss the part of you that believed people were always good, that trust should always be given freely, and that love alone could heal brokenness. But with time, that grief gives way to clarity. You learn that being wise does not mean becoming bitter, and being cautious does not mean abandoning kindness. It means you carry the lessons of your past with you and allow them to inform your choices. Instead of clinging to potential, you begin to rely on evidence. Instead of listening only to words, you start paying attention to patterns. Instead of allowing hope to guide you, you balance it with accountability. This clarity gives you strength because you are no longer easily persuaded by charm, excuses, or promises. You know now that true respect, love, and care are shown consistently, not spoken into existence. This transformation also allows you to protect the parts of yourself that are worth keeping. Your compassion, your empathy, your capacity to care. Those qualities do not need to disappear just because they were once misused. They simply need to be paired with discernment. You still get to be the person who loves deeply, but now you love wisely. You still get to give, but now you give to those who have earned it. You still get to trust, but now you trust with open eyes. What once felt like a weakness becomes a strength because the lessons of naivety have sharpened your ability to see truth. That clarity is the gift born out of what once felt like loss.